All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Brian, can you hear me? Perfect. I see your face. So I'm going to ask you the questions. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for joining our webinar on how to use AI to improve productivity and thrive in the digital world. My name is Darshan Shah, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Executive Vice President for Data and lead a program called AnalytiXIN for the Central Indiana Corporate Partnership. I have the great privilege to tag team this webinar with my colleague Dennis right here, who is the Senior VP of Talent and Partnerships for TechPoint. And you'll notice just in our voice inflection, the rest of it, that we absolutely love this topic, and couldn't be more excited to be putting on this session today as a kickstart to several conversations we really hope to have with each of you, going forward over the course of the year. So go on to the next slide. That bump. There we go. We thought we'd use what you see right now as an agenda for our next 40 minutes or so today, leaving time for plenty of Q&A at the end. I'm going to kick us off by talking about some of the surveys that employers were asked last year through Deloitte and McKinsey that were describing the relatively current state of Gen AI today. I'm then going to dive into a framework of principles that organizations should be thinking about when they get started with Gen AI. I'm then going to hand it over to Dennis to walk through some specific use cases with Gen AI, as well as do a live demo demonstrating some of those tools. And during that time that Dennis is doing his demo, be ready to chime in with your ideas for the demo, because he's going to be asking for your suggestions. I'll then wrap us up by talking about a series of communities of practice that we're initiating here at CACP to continue the discussion, realizing that what we're doing here today is obviously just a starting point. Since it often comes up as a question in the Q&A, we'll certainly be posting the full webinar. So feel free to watch it again, share it with your colleagues as you see fit, and don't feel like you have to, screen grab things and the rest of it, because it'll certainly be available to you later. So let's go to the next one. So let's dive into some of the employer survey data from Deloitte and McKinsey first. The key takeaways from this initial figure here is that as of last summer, 80% of employers thought that Gen AI would drive efficiencies, and more than half thought it would create growth opportunities. At the same time, just over half are experimenting with Gen AI, and just over a third were implementing Gen AI to some extent. Based on our discussions with employers as well, we've also conducted a more recent AI survey, which we'll be releasing the results of over the next couple of weeks. This has only continued to grow. The industries taking charge, leading the charge, have been in tech and media, have been in financial services, professional services, and healthcare, pharma, med devices, as you would likely anticipate. But there's traction truly across the board. And employees are heavily using Gen AI tools outside of work, which of course has a spillover effect into the workplace. Once again, this data was from Q2 of last year, and based on what we've seen, this only just continues to grow. The primary use cases are in marketing and sales, in product development, and in service ops with things like chatbots, trend identification, reading and writing support, personalized marketing, et cetera. And as you can see, there's obviously a number of other use case opportunities, but those are where some of the early investments have been. And the last of the data slides I thought I would touch on is around the risks employers are seeing around using Gen AI, calling out concerns like cyber, IP, regulatory, and simply the Gen AI being wrong, the results being wrong. These results are important, and these risks are important because these are the types of defensive strategies that must be in place for organizations to truly get the positive value use cases to take hold, because these are the types of challenges that can cause everything else to stop. There are lots and lots of Gen AI tools out there in the market, depending on your use cases. And that includes everything from chatbots to writing support to transcribing meetings to creating audio, images, and video. And obviously the list goes on and on and on, and it changes by the week. And I really mean by the week. So this slide was created about 6 weeks ago, roughly. And since then, if you think about just what happened in the last 2 weeks with Sora coming out, which allows for text to video generation from OpenAI, Doesn't include, Gemini from Google, which is the new brand for Bard, which now allows for image generation, and the list goes on and on. But it just kind of gives you an example of just a couple of things that just happened in the last few weeks that, of course, you can't update the slide fast enough. So there are several frameworks for getting started with Gen AI, but I really like this simple principle approach that Deloitte put out that really kind of helps kind of think about the key kind of pockets of things that have to be considered as you go down your AI journey. The first item here is that data is king. Businesses need to ensure that their data is architected properly, it's accessible to the AI applications to support AI-enabled use cases. This means you have to have a data strategy. Your data must be clean, it must be accessible, it must talk to each other, it must be harmonized. And oftentimes this means it has to be centralized, and you have to consider whether a cloud strategy might be advantageous to your business. And I would add one more thing, which is that you should also be able to visualize your data to support basic data-driven decision-making, as well as build confidence in your underlying data before you continue to move further downstream through your AI journey. Secondly, governance is critical. Without effective governance guardrails, AI simply can't scale. A governance framework should define your vision, identify potential risks and gaps in capabilities, validate performance with the appropriate KPIs. These types of considerations not only safeguard the business, but can also help scale projects beyond simple proofs of concept. You don't want to have a super proof of concept and then stop. You want to be able to continue down that journey. So your governance strategy should help you ensure that you're using the tools in a responsible manner and making sure that you as a company and whatever you decide to deploy, it's being done in ways that are consistent with your organization's values as well as your own values. The third item here is around copyright, and it may not be immediately important for everyone, but it's certainly something to keep in mind. Gen AI has completely altered the copyright landscape. Now anyone can create images, video, text, and audio with just a few clicks. And some of the models have been trained on content that comes from third parties that are restricted, which may cause legal risks, including IP concerns. This may not impact all your businesses, but it is something to keep in mind when creating content for things like marketing campaigns. Fourth up is crawl, walk, run, and fly. Individuals and orgs have been using frameworks like crawl, walk, run for ages, and Gen AI is just no different. In the crawl stage, applications may be ad hoc, require lots of manual effort. Eventually, you'll graduate to the walk stage, in which processes become more defined and automated. When you get to the run stage, use cases get standardized and become much more pervasive at the enterprise level. Then when it becomes time to fly, your organization has the opportunity to leverage the work it's already done to be able to embrace these next generation capabilities. And the key here is to lead with need and to focus on the right use cases to learn while doing and delivering, because the journey itself is as important as the actual endpoint today, realizing that everything here is moving so quickly. The last item, and honestly my favorite, but it's also the one that's probably the most terrifying, is the imagination piece. Nobody truly knows where just Gen AI is going. In a Gen AI world, imagination truly is the only limit. It's not possible to create constant streams of content, identify new operational efficiencies, scan regulatory filings or customer reviews in minutes, and the list goes on and on. Now the question simply is, what do you want to know? Asking better questions will become a crucial skill set in enterprises that have adopted generative AI. This trend may create demand for a new type of leader, one that is driven more by creativity than what we've seen in the past. If you think about our image generation tools that are available right now, if you give it a boring prompt, it's gonna give you a pretty boring picture. The same is true of Gen AI applications at the enterprise level. Unimaginative use cases produce limited impact. And as more and more businesses attempt to differentiate themselves from their competition, leaders who find creative new applications for Gen AI may separate themselves and their orgs from their peers and competitors who are simply just following the data. And coming from a data guy, this certainly gives me pause, and I hope it actually makes you think about that as well. And that brings me to my final slide, and I'll let you read this while I'm chatting. Use cases are priority number one. You have to lead with your use cases, otherwise it's not going to get the traction that you want in your organization. I think this cartoon does a great job of reminding us to all take a breath, think about your needs first before getting enamored by the tech, and then coming up with a plan to get there. And with that, I'll hand it over to Dennis to talk more about use cases and demonstrate some best practices with some Gen AI tools.
Absolutely. Thanks, Darshan. I'm going to start by just giving you a little mini agenda for the back half of the presentation. We are going to start by talking about generative AI use cases, jumping off from where Darshan just tied to us. And then we're going to look at AI in action, some examples of powerful real-world use cases currently in play to trigger imagination and also model process a bit. We're going to talk about prompt best practices as a way of drilling into that a little bit more. And then we're going to do a hands-on experiment with text generation, and we're going to do a hands-on experiment with image generation. And if the technology cooperates with us, it will all go smoothly, and it will be a fun exercise as well. So if we can go to the next slide. I want to start with a little bit of context. I was fortunate to be invited to participate in the NBA Technology Summit last week, part of the festivities around the All-Star Game, and really want to hold that experience up for two reasons. The first is the introduction of some of the perspectives and technologies really does help us concretize and stretch our imagination on the one hand. And then second, the whole exercise that the NBA was going through, I think, is a good model for us to be thinking about in our organizations. What the NBA does with their technology summit is get thought leaders together with owners, with players, with their broadcast partners, with other technology company partners, and they riff for a day around what's happening now, what emergent use cases are, where things seem to be going. And the goal is to level set folks around possibility. What should we be doing organizationally? What should we be doing as a league to really provide that orientation, which I think is a really good model for how we should be thinking about that, right? Applied to the crawl, walk, run, fly metaphor, we should all be doing those kinds of exercises with our leadership teams right now, and in as concrete a fashion as possible. So trying to model that out for you today. Couple things that the NBA All-Star use cases shared that are worth taking away as frameworks. Real quickly, we'll note they have begun to use AI's ability to do image recognition at speed to mine the vast catalog of historical data and statistical information that they have to create tools that users, fans, creators, broadcasters can then use to develop new experiences and new understandings of the league. So on the left of your screen, if you're looking straight at it, is one example that they showed in real time. They asked ChatGPT, and they were using a modified version of ChatGPT to show me a Pacer game as if it were a Spider-Man movie. So pulled a recent real Pacer game and then auto wheel generated it into the Spider-Man format. So the transition took about 3 seconds, maybe a little less, seemed like 3 seconds, but about 3 seconds. And then you had real-time action video, all driven by generative AI's ability to go in and mine that data incredibly quickly and come back with a product that suited. Another example to sort of broaden horizons of thinking, Victor Wembanyama, if any of your basketball fans know Victor, phenom sensation, all of 20 years old. He was asked to come out and help co-lead the session with Adam Silver, and Ahmad Rashad was the moderator for the whole day, and they brought Ahmad out as well, and they had Ahmad stand side by side with Victor, and Victor looked out at a camera, and the camera was real-time capturing Victor and Ahmad's facial expressions and their voices, and they superimposed using AI. If you can see it clearly, the top image on the right, that is Victor with Ahmad Rashad's facial features. And when Victor began speaking, he now had Ahmad Rashad's voice. And the delay was less than a second, maybe half a second between Victor speaking and so forth. So very real time, very photorealistic. All of the images in the top boxes are AI generated. They're not, in fact, photo streams. They're completely AI generated images of Victor with Ahmad Rashad's features and so forth. So really powerful example of what's going on now with technology. Another really compelling component of the day was that John King, CNN analyst, had the opportunity to interview for all of the participants the person who is the chief scientific officer for Microsoft, has led their research and development division, Eric Horvath. And Eric got his PhD in artificial intelligence in 1985. So has literally been working on AI for the last 40 years, and said that where we are now is the benefit of an inflection point around 10 years ago, and an inflection point on an inflection point about 18 months ago, and that he anticipates another inflection point within the next 18 months. So what we're really doing right now is riding an exponential wave with an exponential wave on top of that, and soon another exponential wave on top of that. So a pace and breadth and depth of change, unlike anything we have ever seen before. He's very optimistic about where we're going, and the possibility opens up for human beings, like human-centered adoption of AI as our imperative. He's really bullish on. And he said, what you can expect to see in the next 18 months as you are running use case scenarios and trying to imagine both real time and far enough out to be beneficial to stay on top of the wave is the convergence of three things, which I will share. One is what we know now, ChatGPT, the reasoning function, and the way Horvath sees the ChatGPT tools, the large language models, and the general process transformers is as reasoning agents, that is what they're being fine-tuned to do. They're then being connected in the pyramid that he was describing to deep memory, new tools now that allow memory, allow ultra personalization, allow a sustainable depth of data over time that can then be used to mine deeply personal, deeply targeted, deeply restricted use cases using the reasoning agents. And then on top of that, he said, and we're in the zone now, and we'll see increasingly things like Sora that take advantage of the multimodal facet of AI. So bringing together deep memory, the ability to express and create in any genre, whether it's music or text or live stream video or code, the ability to create in any direction. Shortly after that, he thinks on the 5-term horizon, his prediction is we will get to general intelligence with the next 5 years, and that will be categorically different. Some things that need to occur before now and then. Darshan was alluding to those sorts of things. They involve having a self-regulating layer around AI, an inferencing layer that helps the AI realize when it is coming up with conclusions that don't adhere to reality, a planning layer that will be layered on. So those are being developed now. Those are actively under research production, not only at Microsoft and OpenAI, but Google, Amazon Web Services, other groups that are in the space are all working on those targets. And he's confident that there will be general AI, could quibble over what the definition of general AI is, but within 5 years. So as we're imagining our use cases, we're moving to what Horvath would describe as an agent, where we can give a task to an AI that can then go out and complete that task for us to reason, to think through it, to come up with probabilities that are no longer hallucinations, but are statistically reliable and valid is what we're coming up with. So provide that as a little bit of context to stir the imagination and think about how we can all be going out and imagineering, if you will. So hop to the next slide, a little more concrete, because this one's looking in the rearview mirror. Also sort of foresightful, but Mr. Santos is an entrepreneur, Portuguese entrepreneur, who in March 2023 decided that he would do a thought experiment to find out to how far he could go using ChatGPT in identifying a business, developing a product model, launching the company, and so forth. Could he take $1,000 investment and in a year build $1 million business with the ChatGPT doing all of the work? And I won't read all of the text on the screen. It's an interesting case. What he discovered was, yes, he could. In less than a year, he was able to work with ChatGPT. ChatGPT really doing all of the work. He just made himself the sole employee of ChatGPT CEO. And ChatGPT CEO came up with the business model, which was a line of clothing with art designed by AI, early version of DALL-E, created designs that could then be printed, created an online store. All of the AI was generated by Midjourney. The marketing plan, the coding for building his shop, all of that was done by ChatGPT. He essentially was executing the directions that were provided, very iterative, very detailed. And we'll talk more about some of these things when we get to prompt specificity. But the gist of this example is every aspect of the startup business, from idea creation to business model creation to product development to product creation, to selling and marketing and e-commerce exchanges to tax filings, was done principally by ChatGPT with an assist from one human being. So pretty powerful example of what the realm of possibility is when we think about the use cases. Okay, go to the next slide. All right, so Darshan already mentioned some target areas. There's pretty solid uniformity among national analysts right now. If you look at a Gartner, a Deloitte, a Bain Consulting, there's consensus around what the 4 areas are that are going to see the heaviest penetration in the next 3 to 5 years of impact from AI. At the NBA Summit, John Stankey, who's the current CEO of AT&T, echoed this as well. So I'd say real-time validation that the 4 areas we're going to see the biggest impact are going to be software development, and probably the most quickly moving right now, marketing and sales, the customer experience or customer operations, and research and development, new product and service functionality with organizations. The national analysts say that 85% of the activity impact of the next 3 to 5 years is going to come in those 4 domains. So wanted to share some specific examples of what that look like right now, and at an accessible level that you can all go out and try and run for your organizations, right? Much more complicated use cases. Mr. Santos makes it clear your imagination truly does only limit what you do in terms of use cases, but some examples in marketing-content creation, some examples in sales enablement. And I structured the use cases as prompts to give you an example of not only what the use case is, but how you would give a prompt to ChatGPT to get a project back. So first example is compose an email checking with a colleague about the status of a project we're working on together. Ask if they need help. Probably everybody on the call has had an employee at some point who is conflict averse or not good at providing updates on where they are in the progress. So ask ChatGPT how to delicately provide them with guidance to get that subtle accountability, subtle but effective accountability. So that's an example. Create 10 original social media post ideas for LinkedIn. Suggest 3 newsletter headlines about tech trends. All really simple examples of use cases that you can drill in on in the content creation marketing domain. On the sales enablement side, some prompts or use cases could be draft a cold call email for prospecting. Target market it based on age and demographics. Compose a first draft introduction email to member of our sales team could send when prospecting CTOs at mid-sized companies. Revise it for large codes. Revise it for specific zip codes. Simplify this slide deck into more accessible language, right? Change the voice in the language. Be able to modify particular audiences. So high level, some examples to start to prime the pump before we go into the hands-on test of this. We could go to the next slide. Wanted to give an example. So I think that it is fair to say that the art and science of writing prompts to get optimal results is very much an emergent field, really a nascent field, but a lot of lessons are already surfacing around what works. It will be a continually evolving terrain as the tools change and become more effective. But right now, at this moment in time, if you're running prompts and you're running use cases, here are some key principles. First, the more clear you can be in providing context, the better. All right, so saying something like, I am writing a pitch for a product for a university, and my purchaser is going to be the university president, so target for the university president. The more context you can add, the more you're limiting the part of the ginormous database that the large language model is drawing on for its answers. So context matters. Set the stage by noting the intended goal at the beginning, as detailed as you possibly can, be as precise as you can. Give necessary background details to the AI. Use focused instructions. Be very explicit about what you want. exactly how you want the output to be. So for example, I want a 2-page, 5-paragraph document. I want it written for somebody who is at an 8th grade reading level. I want it to have a professional tone, but also with a slight hint of humor here and there. And then use clear directives to provide context, write a summary of, use ideas for. And then the last 3 points are really interesting. For those of you who are green, discovering that the more restrictive you are in the prompts, the more energy efficient the AI is when it works. And it also, having clear constraints also produces better results, more targeted results, less hallucinations. The best way to avoid hallucinations is with specificity, being really clear in your initial prompts and then the iterative prompts that you do. So constraints help creativity. They eliminate hallucinations. They make AI more energy efficient. So lots of reasons to do them. And constraints can include parameters like word count, format, style, particular works of literature or marketing databases that you're consulting, whatever will give it specificity and bounded boxes to work within and to respond within. And then finally, not here as a slide, but absolutely important to remember is that generative AI is a conversational medium. It is very much, as a result, an iterative medium. You will not get the results you want with your first prompt. You will get something good, useful, directionally headed where you want it to most times, but you're going to have to iterate and refine the specificity, experiment with it, try different paths to get something that's right on target with what you would like. So very much think about it as an iteratively conversational process. Yep, we're going to hop ahead into the hands-on part now, and I am going to try to share my screen. And while I'm sharing my screen, I want to invite you to tell me what you want us to work on. So the question is, what new product or service, suggest a new product or service that your company might be interested in starting, or that your sector might be interested in pursuing, where you're looking for ideas, fine-tuned ideas around what that new product or service should be. And we're going to pretend we're Mr. Santos, and we are going to ask ChatGPT to help us select a product idea and then flesh it out a little bit. And then in the next phase, we're going to have it help us with developing a graphical identity for it.
So feel free to suggest your ideas in the chat right now. And we mentioned at the beginning too, we're going to open up for broader Q&A at the end of the session in about 15 minutes or so. So feel free to be jotting those in the chat as well. And Dennis is gonna get a screen enabled, and we'll go into the demo.
All right, there we go. Can you see ChatGPT? All right, fantastic. I'm going to try to make it bigger for you. Omar, do you see some good use cases in there?
Not yet.
All
right, let's look. I
Yep.
got it.
Nothing on yet.
All right, we've got a couple. All right, we'll go with the first one. So we'll develop a marketing business plan for a meal planning assistant for diabetics. All right, let's go with that. That's a cool one. All right. We're going to ask ChatGPT to imagine that you are an entrepreneur developing a new wellness app to guide meal and diet choices for diabetics. Share ideas for the product we should create. We're going to keep it simple at the beginning. So ChatGPT is giving us functionality for the app, personalized meal planning, adaptive algorithms, cultural and dietary considerations, blood sugar tracking analysis, integration with glucose monitors, insights and patterns, grocery shopping assistant, educational content, community support, exercise integration, gaming and rewards verification, AI-powered chatbots, integration, privacy and security. All right, well, let's ask, based on market conditions, based on total addressable market, what is the best demographic to target for this product? So it's giving us a screening process for determining prevalence of diabetes, age group, type of diabetes, technology adoption rates, faster for younger adults, working adults. So it's told us its reasoning, and now it's saying, based on those criteria, we recommend you target this to adults age 45 to 64 with type 2 diabetes. And our strategic considerations in targeting are accessibility, engagement, education, and focus. All right, so if we've got a little bit of time, so we could ask real quickly, develop a plan for a WordPress website to advertise and market this exciting new wearable. Create a brand name and identity for the device.
Nice.
Gluco Guardian. Giving us the WordPress web plan, going to tell us we could iteratively go in and have it actually design the code to fully implement, to just be able to insert. And from here, we're going to transition into a little bit of graphics work. Can also have it develop the graphics content for us. And if we didn't like the ideas, we could iterate it until we do. That's the nice thing. It doesn't get tired or impatient. It will give you new ideas and brand identity and concepts again and again and again. All right, let's ask, create a mock-up of a banner ad for the WordPress site. Helps if I can spell. Site for Gluco Guardian. Takes a while. The gerbils are running and working really hard. And there we go. There's our banner ad. Gluco Guardian to scour your health. Yeah, some images with a lot of text. Sometimes you have to do them several times to get all of the spelling right. You can iteratively go back. I like it. Got a crisp aesthetic to it.
Yeah.
Good banner ad, good website presence. All right. Let's say that we didn't like it. Let's say we want to modify. We'll do a little iteration here. Good start. Refine the graphic for the demographic that is 45 to 50. Reflect market understanding of their color and marketing, color and design preferences. Give us a new image, and it'll tell us the reasoning it applied to create the image. So we can tweak it and refine it.
One of the questions that just came through while it's generating was asking whether the Gen AI can generate images that are not square. Can you actually offer pixel dimensions and have it kind of provide, non-square images?
You can. Do you want to suggest some? Good. So this is tailored for a 45 to 50-year-old audience. Yeah, looks like this one got pretty close on the text. Yeah. Made an attractive looking product as well. Came up with a style for the device as well. Make the image a circular logo with high def quality. And I could have given it specificity, like exact pixel count and so forth, but being quick. Yeah, there we go. And if we really wanted all the text to be in the circular logo, we could go back and iterate again. But hopefully the hands-on gives you a little bit of a sense of just how easy it is really to get started with these tools and to experiment with some use cases to be able to then, personally engage more fully and guide the use case conversations that we want to be having within our organizations. Right now, Nick Horvath said, we're writing on an exponential, soon to be on an exponential, and we all have to be out imagining new solutions and engaging in continuous learning and experimentation. I think that is probably the perfect attitude right now. It's about curiosity, experimentation, and trying out those use cases.
So I got a question from the chat. Should we create a separate chat for each topic? Seems like from this presentation, it's the same chat. Is it learning from what's already been created? So if we were to change topics without creating a new chat, would ChatGPT know to forget about all the glucose work that has been done?
And that's a great question. Yeah, so it depends on what your goals are. So we're using ChatGPT 4. So using the commercial version in ChatGPT 4, you can create a personal channel. You can create multiple channels. So I don't reflect it here, but for me, I've got a dentist channel where I do now all of my queries there, because over time, it will sound more and more like me and reason more and more like me. And for that particular channel, that's exactly what I want. I want it to remember every search. I've given it many of the books and articles I've written in the past to be able to ingest that data and already have a sense of how I think and how I write. But that's a goal there. For this, I don't do that because this is just harvesting generally from ChatGPT, and you're getting general community knowledge, and it's regularly updating. If you create a ChatGPT, if you create your own channel, it's still harvesting broadly, but it's remembering your queries, your questions, your style, and superimposing that layer. So not unlike Victor Wambayama having Ahmad Rashad's face and voice, ChatGPT is giving the text and the images your voice and your style.
Well, hopefully that was a nice kind of glimpse into the art of the possible here. And obviously, you can be demoing that kind of stuff and kind of work through every kind of permutation. Appreciate the additional questions in the chat, and we'll maybe kind of talk through some of those items here momentarily. But Dennis, thank you for doing the live demo. We always know that's always a little bit nerve-wracking whenever you're doing one like that. So pretty clearly you showed us how it's done. So are we sharing again with the slides? Great. So the last topic we want to touch on today was around a series of communities of practice that we either have or are establishing to bring together organizations and people with similar areas of interest. Realizing that the conversation starts, today and actually continues today and keeps going. But if you're not familiar with communities of practice, they're facilitated group sessions to help boost knowledge, share learning, spark ideas, build networks, and help translate the art of the possible into practice. And practically what this means is that what we're going to do is we're going to bring together companies, academic faculty, and third-party experts around common topics to learn and grow together. This may mean that we're bringing an expert to teach about a topic. This could simply be having you come and share your successes or failures, since we truly learn from both. It can mean coming up, with the use case of interest to collectively brainstorm together. It can mean a subset of the group collaborating on a project together, and the list goes on and on. These groups will just continue to evolve with your engagement, and really we're just going to get these set up so that way we can start to kind of bring together these groups to have these conversations. So the next slide here is we did an AI survey, which I mentioned we're going to share the results on pretty soon. And in that, we asked about communities of practice that would be of most interest. And what you see on the screen here are the leading vote getters. So we're planning on getting started here, realizing that, again, this is going to continue to be a live kind of product that we're going to continue to kind of pivot on. So the first one here is around AI/ML. And obviously AI/ML is a massive tent. So initially, we're going to focus this communities of practice, or COP, on how industry members can effectively use the productivity suites, like ChatGPT, like Copilot, similar to kind of stuff that Dennis was doing here to be able to get the most out of it, with the potential that this COP will, over time, evolve into more specific use cases and challenges. The second one here is around data visualization and business intelligence. This COP is dedicated to sharing best practices around data viz development, data viz tools like Tableau and Power BI or Python libraries, how to foster a culture of data-driven storytelling that's intuitive and accessible for users. Third up here is data literacy and data-driven decision-making. Improved data literacy can have a transformative impact on organizations' culture and decision-making processes. Can really start here. I came from state government, and they have this wonderful data literacy program that they're employed out through their entire employee base, which is continuing to kind of build up the broad kind of ability to be able to share and consume data across the organization, which only kind of emboldens itself into all the other aspects of doing business. Next up is data ethics and privacy. This group will concentrate on the ethical considerations and privacy implications around data collection, processing, usage, as well as data privacy implications of emerging tech, such as, of course, the challenges around big data analytics, AI, and stuff like that. Next up is advanced analytics for workforce pipeline. So this is the people side of things. So the COP is going to focus on collaborations between academia, businesses, and government to be able to create an ecosystem for Indiana talent around advanced analytics. Next up is around data governance and quality. This community is focused on sharing resources and background on the implementation of data governance and data quality standards, as well as practical solutions on how to monitor quality and governance in real time. Next up is plant, animal, and human genomics. It says plant animal there, but it's also going to tie into human as well. And this community of practice is around cross-disciplinary focus around how we can use genetic data from plants, animals, and humans to be used for holistic advancements across all three, as well as how it impacts environmental sustainability. And as a side note, through the AnalytiXIN Indiana program, one of the things that we've done is work closely with the Indiana Biobank, which is within the School of Medicine at IU, as well as IU Health, to create a clinical genomic health data asset to support everything from drug development, research through clinical trials. Currently, we have 35,000 patients who have consented to be part of this program, and would be happy to share more with your organizations if you think you would find value from an asset like this. So not that the last couple here. Next up is around anomaly detection and computer visioning. This group is going to go and take a deep dive into machine learning for identifying anomalies and data sets, enhancing computer vision capabilities. A lot of our manufacturing organizations have been already kind of working with our university colleagues around computer vision related use cases. So that'll be an area where we can kind of bring some of the learnings there to be able to take forward. And then the last one here is on supply chain analytics around, of course, enhancing the resilience and performances, of supply chains, using big data. So these are the first, 9 or so that we have listed, and they're going to continue to evolve. But we obviously wanted to get started with the biggest vote getters, that we heard from the AI survey. But the first 4 that we're going to get kickstarted here, roughly the next 4 to 6 weeks, are going to be the 4 that you see on the screen right now, regarding AI ML productivity tools, data viz, data ethics, and data literacy. In the next week and a half to 2 weeks, we should have the dates locked in, and we will email out everybody that's on this webinar in case you guys are interested in being part of these and helping us learn together. Couple other plugs that we want to kind of share. One, TechPoint already has a wonderful CIO network. So if you're a senior IT leader in your organization, you can register at the link on the screen here and join these valuable discussions. The next one is a dinner and a conversation over at the Point on Penn on March the 12th. So just coming up in about 3 weeks or so. And they generally happen every about 6 to 8 weeks or so, or kind of when these gatherings are occurring. Next up, similarly to the CIO network, is the Indiana Founders Network, also run by TechPoint. So if you're a tech founder, you can register using the link on the screen here. And their next event is a breakfast on March the 28th here at 16 Tech, just north and west of downtown. And plug for 16 Tech, if you haven't been over here, certainly come on down and grab some lunch, check out the co-working space, and kind of be part of the community that we're growing here at 16 Tech. And then the last item that I was going to mention that I don't have a slide for is, and actually David Bowling, if you're, I think you're on here as well, if you wouldn't mind kind of dropping some of the information on this into the chat, that'd be wonderful. There's a smart manufacturing roadshow that's happening next week on Wednesday, the 28th. It's an all-day event that's going to bring together lots of different folks, lots of different organizations to talk about, advancements in smart manufacturing. They've got a wonderful lineup and highly recommend you join if you're interested in this topic, because obviously it delves very much into all the things that we're discussing here today. So with that, I'm going to pause, and I'm going to thank you all once again for joining our discussion today. Dennis and I are happy to attempt to answer your questions, and I'm realizing that, we're all going to learn together on this front, but feel free to post them in the chat. And, we look forward to continue the conversations through one or more of these communities of practice that are most interest to you and your organizations. Thanks again. So let's see what we got in the chat here. You got anything, Omar? Well, one of the questions that came through from Paul a little bit earlier, and he had a couple of other good demo ideas, which obviously we won't kind of get into, but when you created the image that was circular instead of kind of rectangular, he was curious, like, would that work if you did like a 950 by 150 banner? Like if you put in kind of like the pixel counts or the dimensions, would the GPT-4 provide that type of dimension kind of image?
Yeah, great question. So I have not tried it directly in ChatGPT-4. I've tried it directly in DALL-E 4 directly as well. Whether there's anything differently about how it works embedded through ChatGPT-4, I can't say, but we could try and let you know.
There's a question: any recommendations for Gen AI to replace basic Photoshop tasks? Would ChatGPT be the right system to use?
Good go for it.
Yeah, so
it's probably part of your image conversation. So.
Yeah. So not ChatGPT. So you can, if what you want to do is edit images that you currently have, that capability is still not well baked into ChatGPT. It will be soon, being able to upload the images and layer them. The better thing, Adobe and the other mainline video editing companies are putting AI-based tools, designer tools into their packages. And so if you want to build something that is a layered image, it's still easiest to do it in those kind of products, and to take advantage of the AI embedding, or to use a tool like Canvas online if you want an online tool where you can do a layer graphic driven by AI and it will create AI for you. That's coming. I think it will probably be within OpenAI within the year, but it's not there yet. It is in the other tools like Canva and Adobe.
Yeah, I was saying, you kind of mentioned kind of the AI tools kind of slide that we were sharing earlier with like Adobe Firefly and stuff like that. I mean, obviously, those are kinds of things that are going to integrate well into kind of a lot of the Photoshop related kind of activities that you'd be wanting, and it's already obviously native into the Adobe kind of ecosystem, so it's going to be more natural. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Another question: are there plans for a notebook generation webinar? The collating of data from different sources seem to be not well covered in most LinkedIn learning classes.
It's a great idea. Certainly, our motivation here, kind of through the communities of practice as well as these webinars, is to be able to determine what is of interest to you and the broader kind of community. And of course, if we if there are enough folks that are interested in stuff like that, we certainly will put that out there. So keep the ideas coming. We'll keep them captured. And then probably after we get these initial communities of practice launched, we'll probably kind of set some additional kind of surveys out around additional ideas that we have and kind of gauge, level of interest from the community. And then we can obviously, support those accordingly. The Copilot specifically, kind of was brought up here in the chat as well. And one of the reasons, for some of the early kind of communities of practice to be focused on around a conversation on Copilot is we do know that there's a lot of companies that are considering, making investments in Copilot, and a lot of those companies have asked us about whether those are good investments, what are the cost implications to consider, if we do kind of make these investments, how do we kind of make sure that we kind of unveil it, release it accordingly for our employees in the best way, appropriate. How do we train them to make sure they get the most value out of it? So that's why those are the kind of conversations that we wanted to kind of have as part of that early communities of practice, realizing that it'll continue to evolve from there.
Yeah, and a couple of questions in the chat, some direct and some group wise, about the CIO network. So if you are a top level technology person in your organization, especially really the screen is not in a sales or a marketing role, but operationally involved or working on product, then you are probably eligible for the CIO network. If you're interested in those meetings, we have regular monthly meetings, and we are just in the process of kicking off a cohort. They're fairly large cohort right now. It looks like about 80. We'll probably split it into two groups of hands-on technology practitioners who want to regularly get together and share ideas, best practices, et cetera, around AI. So if you're interested in being in a really deep technical detail working group around AI or the general CIO network, feel free to ping me directly and we'll get you connected.
Any other questions? I'm just typing the link or dropping the link in for the Smart Manufacturing Roadshow into the chat in case anyone is interested in joining. So it's a really good agenda. So hopefully see a few of you over here at 16 Tech for that next week. All right, we just got a few more minutes left. Any final questions? Certainly we'll belabor you guys on your lunch break. I'll also drop my email here, and I'm sure. Are you just D-Trinkle?
Yep.
Putting both Dennis and my email addresses in our chat. So if you guys want to reach out, you know how. Did I put that right?
Actually, I'm just Dennis.
Just Dennis, no, sorry. Well, wonderful. Well, thanks again for joining, everyone. It's been a good time. I always learn something whenever I hear Dennis kind of talk through these kinds of things too. So it's it's as beneficial for us as you. So thank you. Have a great rest of your week, and hopefully see you some of the communities of practice in the future.
And may all your images be round.
All right. See you, everyone.